What happens when a beloved singer sits down for what should be a simple morning interview and finds himself facing an onslaught of disrespect from one of television's biggest names? In just 48 seconds, a routine promotional appearance turned into one of the most shocking moments in morning television history, exposing the true colors of a host who thought he was untouchable. The studio lights were bright that morning as Teddy Swims walked onto the Good Morning America set. He was there to talk about his new album, to share his music with the world, to connect with fans who had supported him through his incredible journey from singing covers online to becoming one of the most authentic voices in music today. He wore his signature style, comfortable and genuine, ready for what he thought would be a friendly conversation about his art. Michael Strahan sat across from him, flanked by Robin Roberts and George Stephanopoulos. The cameras were rolling, the audience was watching, and everything seemed normal at first. But within moments, it became clear that something was very different about this interview. Strahan started with what seemed like a standard question. So Teddy, you've gone from singing in your bedroom to selling out shows. That must feel pretty good, right? Going from nobody to somebody. Teddy smiled, trying to keep things light despite the backhanded nature of the question. Well, I wouldn't say I was a nobody. I was always somebody to the people who believed in me. My fans, my family. They saw me before anyone else did. Right, Strahan said, barely listening. But I mean, before you got famous. Before people actually knew who you were. You were just another guy with a YouTube channel, weren't you? Robin Roberts shifted uncomfortably in her seat. You could see it on her face. She knew where this was going, and she didn't like it. George looked down at his notes, seemingly trying to distance himself from what was unfolding. Teddy took a breath. I think everyone's journey is valid, you know? I was building something real with real people who connected with my music. That's always meant everything to me. Sure, Strahan interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. But let's be honest here. You're not exactly what people picture when they think of a pop star, are you? I mean, look at you. The studio went silent. You could hear the collective gasp from the crew members off camera. Robin's eyes went wide, and she immediately tried to jump in. Michael, I don't think... Robin started, but Strahan kept going. No, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, he continued, leaning back in his chair with an arrogant smirk. The tattoos, the look, the whole vibe, it's not exactly mainstream, is it? Don't you think you'd have more success if you cleaned up a little bit? Maybe tried to look more, I don't know, presentable? Teddy's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. But he maintained his composure, showing a level of grace that Strahan clearly lacked. I think authenticity is what connects with people, Teddy said carefully. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. My fans appreciate that I'm real with them. Authenticity, Strahan repeated mockingly. Is that what we're calling it now? Look, I've been in this business a long time. I know what works and what doesn't. And I'm telling you, as someone who's actually made it to the top, you might want to reconsider your image. George finally spoke up, trying to steer the conversation away from the disaster it was becoming. Teddy, why don't you tell us about the new album? I hear it's very personal. But Strahan wasn't done. He cut George off before Teddy could answer. Wait, I want to know something else first, Strahan said, that same condescending tone dripping from every word. Do you ever feel like maybe you got lucky? Like maybe the talent isn't really there, and people just felt sorry for you or something? Robin actually stood up slightly from her chair. Michael, that's completely uncalled for. Teddy is an incredibly talented artist, and... I'm just asking questions, Robin, Strahan shot back. Isn't that what we do here? Or are we just supposed to blow smoke and pretend like everyone's amazing? Teddy finally had enough. You could see the shift in his expression. The patience had run out. The willingness to turn the other cheek had evaporated. He sat up straighter, looked Strahan directly in the eye, and spoke with a quiet intensity that commanded attention. You know what, Michael? I came here this morning to talk about music, to share something I created with my whole heart. But instead, you've spent the last few minutes trying to tear me down, questioning my appearance, my talent, my worth. And for what? To make yourself feel bigger? Strahan laughed, but it was hollow. Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive. I'm just... No. Teddy interrupted firmly. You're being disrespectful. There's a difference between asking tough questions and being cruel for no reason. You don't know me. You don't know my story. You don't know what I've been through to get here. The other hosts were frozen. Robin looked like she wanted to applaud. George nodded slowly, clearly agreeing with Teddy's words. The crew members behind the cameras stood motionless, witnessing something they'd never seen before on this set. I've given everything to my music, Teddy continued, his voice growing stronger. I've poured my soul into every song. I've connected with millions of people who see themselves in my journey. And you sit there in your expensive suit, with your perfect hair, acting like you're better than me, because what? Because you're on television? Because you used to play football? Now hold on, Strahan tried to interrupt again, but Teddy wasn't stopping. I've been respectful since I walked in here. I answered your questions even when they were designed to make me look small. But I'm done. I'm done letting people like you make me feel like I don't belong. I belong everywhere. My talent and my heart take me. And if you can't see that, if you can't treat guests with basic human decency, then that says everything about you and nothing about me. Robin finally found her voice fully. Teddy, you're absolutely right. Michael, this has been inappropriate from the start, and I think we all need to... Oh, please, Strahan scoffed. He's just being dramatic. This is television. If you can't handle a little pressure, maybe you're not cut out for this. That was the final straw. Teddy stood up from his chair, calmly removed the microphone from his shirt, and placed it on the table in front of him. I can handle pressure just fine, Teddy said, his voice steady and clear. What I won't handle is being disrespected by someone who thinks his position gives him the right to belittle others. You're a bully, Michael. A bully with a platform. And I'm not going to sit here and give you the satisfaction of watching me shrink. George stood up as well. Teddy, please, we'd love for you to stay. We want to hear about your album, about your music. Michael doesn't speak for all of us. I appreciate that, George. I really do, Teddy said, his tone softening when he addressed George and Robin. You two have been nothing but kind, but I can't stay here. I can't pretend like this is okay. I have too much respect for myself and for my fans who are watching this. Robin walked over to Teddy, ignoring the cameras completely. I am so sorry. This should never have happened. You didn't deserve any of that. Thank you, Robin, Teddy said, giving her a genuine smile. That means a lot. Strahan sat in his chair, arms crossed, trying to look unbothered, but clearly rattled by the turn of events. This is ridiculous. You're all acting like I committed some crime. I was just doing my job. Teddy turned to face him one last time. Your job is to make guests feel welcome, to have interesting conversations, to bring out the best in people. Instead, you used your position to try to make yourself feel superior. That's not journalism. That's not entertainment. That's just sad. The silence that followed was deafening. Crew members stood with their mouths open. The director didn't know whether to cut to commercial or keep rolling. This was unprecedented. This was real. This was the moment when someone finally stood up to the kind of treatment that had become all too common on these shows. I have a question for you, Michael, Teddy said, his hand on the back of his chair. When you look in the mirror tonight, are you going to be proud of how you treated me today? Are you going to feel good about trying to make someone feel small? Because I'm going to go home, and I'm going to feel good about standing up for myself. I'm going to feel good about not letting you define my worth. George stepped forward. Teddy, before you go, I just want to say that your music has touched a lot of people. My daughter listens to your songs all the time. She's going to be so disappointed that this interview went this way. Tell her I'm sorry, Teddy said sincerely. Tell her that sometimes standing up for yourself means walking away from situations that don't serve you. Tell her that's okay to do that. Robin reached out and touched Teddy's arm. You're going to get through this. Your real fans, the people who matter, they're going to see exactly what happened here. They're going to see your character. I know. Teddy nodded. And that's what matters. Not this. Not him. The real connections I have with people who genuinely care. Strahan finally stood up, trying to regain some control of the situation. You know what? If you want to leave, then leave. We don't need you anyway. We have plenty of other guests who would be grateful to be here. And there it is, Teddy said, shaking his head. You still don't get it. This isn't about being grateful for the opportunity. This is about mutual respect. Something you clearly know nothing about. The camera operators were still filming everything. They knew this was historic. They knew this was the kind of moment that would be talked about for years. One of them actually gave Teddy a small thumbs up, which Teddy noticed and appreciated. I want everyone watching to know something, Teddy said, now speaking directly to the camera. It's okay to walk away from people who don't value you. It's okay to stand up for yourself, even when it's scary, even when it's on national television. You don't have to accept mistreatment from anyone, no matter how famous they are, no matter what platform they have. Your dignity matters. Your self-respect matters. Robin was visibly emotional now. That's beautiful, Teddy. That's a message everyone needs to hear. Strahan rolled his eyes. Oh, give me a break. This is so overdramatic. You're acting like I attacked you or something. You did attack me, Teddy responded calmly. Maybe not physically, but you attacked my character, my appearance, my talent. You tried to diminish everything I've worked for. And the scary part is, you don't even seem to realize how wrong that is. George addressed the camera. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back... No, Teddy said. Don't go to commercial on my account. I'm leaving. You all can continue your show however you want, but I won't be a part of it. He started walking toward the exit, and Robin walked with him, still trying to apologize. George followed a few steps behind, clearly upset about how everything had unfolded. Strahan remained at the desk, trying to maintain his composure, but obviously shaken. As Teddy reached the edge of the set, he turned around, one more time. The cameras were still on him, capturing every word. To anyone out there who's ever been made to feel less than, who's ever been judged for how they look or where they come from, I see you. Keep being yourself. Keep pushing forward. Don't let anyone dim your light. And to the people in positions of power who think they can treat others however they want, your day of reckoning is coming. People are waking up. They're not going to accept this kind of behavior anymore. With that, Teddy Swims walked off the Good Morning America set, leaving behind a stunned crew, embarrassed co-hosts, and one arrogant host who had finally been called out for his behavior. The cameras continued rolling, unsure of what else to do. Strahan sat at the desk, trying to laugh it off, but no one was laughing with him. Robin returned to her seat, visibly upset. I think we all need to take a moment and reflect on what just happened here. That was not okay. Teddy deserved better, and I'm sorry he didn't get it. George nodded in agreement. We pride ourselves on being a welcoming show, on treating our guests with respect. Today we failed at that. I think we owe our viewers an apology as well. Strahan shifted uncomfortably. Look, if I came across too harsh, then fine. But let's not pretend like... Michael, stop, Robin cut him off sharply. Just stop. What you did was wrong. There's no spinning it. There's no justifying it. You were cruel to a guest who came here in good faith. Own it. The tension on set was palpable. Crew members exchanged glances, knowing they had just witnessed something significant. This wasn't just an awkward interview. This was a moment that exposed the power dynamics that often go unchallenged in television. This was a moment that showed what happens when someone refuses to play along with disrespect. Strahan tried one more time to defend himself. I was just trying to have an honest conversation. Maybe he couldn't handle... He handled it perfectly, George interrupted. He stood up for himself with grace and dignity, something we should all learn from. The show did eventually go to commercial, but the damage was done. In those few minutes, everything had changed. Teddy Swims had shown the world that fame and platform don't give anyone the right to mistreat others. He had demonstrated that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from a situation that compromises your values. Backstage, Teddy was surrounded by producers and assistants, all apologizing profusely. But he remained calm, collected, and clear about his decision. I appreciate the apologies, he told them, but this isn't about making me feel better right now. This is about accountability. This is about creating a culture where guests are treated with respect, where people don't abuse their power just because they can. One of the producers tried to convince him to return to the set. Maybe we can restart the interview. Just you with Robin and George? Teddy shook his head. I don't think so. The damage is done. And honestly, I think what happened needed to happen. People need to see that this kind of behavior isn't acceptable. If I go back out there and pretend everything's fine, what message does that send? He was right, of course. Going back would have undermined everything he had just stood for. It would have sent the message that disrespect is acceptable as long as an apology follows. That people in power can treat others however they want without real consequences. As Teddy gathered his things and prepared to leave the building, several crew members approached him quietly, thanking him for what he had done. One camera operator whispered, "Someone needed to say that. Thank you." A makeup artist hugged him. "I've seen so many guests get treated badly on this show. I'm glad you didn't just take it." These interactions reinforced what Teddy already knew. The problem wasn't unique to this one morning. It was systemic. It was about an industry that had normalized the mistreatment of guests in the name of entertainment, or honesty, or whatever excuse people wanted to use. Back on set, the show continued. But it was awkward. Strahan tried to act like nothing major had happened, but Robin and George were clearly still processing the incident. Every time Strahan spoke, there was an edge to the responses from his co-hosts. The dynamic had shifted, and everyone could feel it. Robin addressed the audience directly at one point. "I want to acknowledge what happened earlier. Our guest, Teddy Swims, left the show after an exchange that should never have occurred. He was treated disrespectfully, and he had every right to leave. I hope he knows that many of us here have tremendous respect for him and his talent." It was a bold statement, essentially throwing her co-host under the bus on live television. But it was necessary. It was honest. It was what the moment required. George added, "We're going to do better. We have to do better. Every guest who comes on this show deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of who they are or where they come from." Strahan said nothing. He had been effectively silenced by his own actions, by the stand that Teddy had taken, by the support his co-hosts had shown for the guest over their colleague. It was a powerful moment of accountability, playing out in real time. The viewers at home were already reacting on social media, though Teddy wouldn't see most of it until later. The overwhelming response was support for him and criticism of Strahan. People shared their own stories of being judged, being disrespected, being made to feel small by people in positions of power. Teddy's stand had resonated far beyond that television studio. As Teddy walked out of the building and into the morning air, he took a deep breath. He had just walked away from one of the biggest promotional opportunities an artist could have. He had just created a moment that would follow him throughout his career, but he also had done something more important. He had stood up for himself. He had refused to be diminished. He had shown that success doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. His phone was already buzzing with messages. His manager was calling. His publicist was calling. Everyone wanted to know what had happened, what he was thinking, what the plan was now. But Teddy silenced his phone and just stood there for a moment, feeling the sun on his face, feeling proud of the choice he had made. Inside the studio, the show wrapped up its broadcast. As soon as the cameras stopped rolling, Robin stood up and walked over to Strahan. "That can never happen again," she said firmly. "Do you understand?" "Never." Strahan started to respond, but Robin held up her hand. "I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear justifications. What you did today was wrong, and you know it. You embarrassed this show. You embarrassed yourself, and most importantly, you hurt someone who didn't deserve it." George joined them. "She's right, Michael. This isn't about being too sensitive or not being able to handle tough questions. This was about basic respect, and you crossed a line." For the first time, Strahan seemed to realize the gravity of what had occurred. His co-hosts weren't backing him up. The crew wasn't defending him. He was alone in this, and it was his own doing. The rest of the day on the Good Morning America set was subdued. Everyone was talking about what had happened. Some were proud that Teddy had stood his ground. Others were worried about the fallout for the show. But everyone agreed on one thing. They had witnessed something real, something raw, something that cut through all the polish and production of morning television and revealed a truth that needed to be seen. Teddy spent the rest of the day processing what had happened. He thought about the moment he decided to stand up, the moment he chose his dignity over the opportunity. He thought about all the times in his life when he had stayed quiet, when he had accepted less than he deserved because he didn't want to make waves or cause trouble. This time had been different. This time, he had chosen himself. He also thought about the message it would send to his fans, especially the young ones who looked up to him. They would see that their hero didn't back down. They would see that being true to yourself sometimes means making hard choices. They would see that you can be kind and respectful while still standing firm in your boundaries. The conversations in households across the country that evening revolved around what had happened on Good Morning America. Parents talked to their kids about standing up to bullies. Teachers discussed it in classrooms. People debated it at work. It had become more than just a television moment. It had become a cultural conversation about respect, power, and the courage to walk away. Back at the studio, Robin and George had a long conversation with the producers about implementing better practices for guest treatment. They talked about sensitivity training, about creating a more supportive environment, about ensuring that what happened with Teddy would never happen again. Strahan remained defensive, insisting that people were overreacting, that he had just been doing his job. But his isolation was growing. Even those who had previously defended him were starting to see the pattern of behavior that Teddy's stand had illuminated. As the sun set on that extraordinary day, Teddy sat in his home studio, the place where he had recorded countless videos before anyone knew his name. He picked up his guitar and started playing, letting the music wash over him, letting it heal the wounds of the morning and strengthen his resolve for whatever came next. He didn't regret walking off that set. Not for a second. He had stood up for himself in a way that mattered, in a way that would inspire others, in a way that said clearly and unequivocally that every person deserves respect, regardless of their status or appearance or background. The interview that never finished had somehow said more than a completed interview ever could have. It had revealed character, exposed injustice, and sparked a conversation that was long overdue. Teddy Swims had gone to Good Morning America to promote his album, but he had ended up doing something far more important. He had promoted dignity, self-respect, and the courage to stand up against mistreatment, no matter the cost.